all of the walls of our office one-to-one, and we kind of put it on the walls at the Cooper Union with some objects attached to it. It was kind of like a bas relief almost of the office space. And some of the objects are still there. So you see half of the models that we have at the office. And we like this idea of, because we kind of think that an architecture practice kind of stands between, where an architecture practice stands between the poles of frameworks of a corporate professional practice and the promise of the discipline is best revealed through the ratio of objects in their office, the ratio between the letters versus drawings, the ratio between models versus, or let's say material samples versus material experiments, the ratio between models versus permit sets. And I think that that shows the true mode of a practice of an office. And today we're going to share with you our ratio, one-to-one. So what we're going to do is we're going to show the space of our office and the space of our models, and we're going to talk a little bit about the project. Keep in mind that this is the first time, so there might be like a bumpy road ahead of us, but we'll try to maneuver it. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the camera off on this one, and we're going to turn the camera on that one. Nima is kindly going to be behind the camera, but of course he will be talking.
Pay attention to the art of cinematography that you would see, but
of course.
I'm not very good at this, but Benos has done more practice on.
And then yes, so where we are right now is actually the meeting room of our office, which, as Elsa mentioned so beautifully, also that was a lovely introduction. I enjoyed it. Is actually a storefront. We're on the ground floor at a corner lot in Beaconsfield Village in Queen West. And it's like multiple spaces: Jaw Plaza, the main room, the meeting room, the courtyard, and the shop at the very back. And we're going to take you through the whole thing. And these are like interconnected spaces. They're not separate. And during the summer, it becomes even more connected. So I think we're gonna, yes. And I'm gonna have my, let me just mute this one.
I think I am.
So can you guys hear us? Awesome. So I'm gonna be reading some parts of it off my notes just because it's the first time we're doing this, so it might be some glitches just in case. So this is the meeting room. I kind of claimed it as my space after COVID because we both teach, as Elsa mentioned, so we can't teach at the same time. So I took over the meeting room. And the walls and the way they kind of are somewhat what we had from the beginning and how Riley photographed them. So this is mostly landscape, and as also again Elsa mentioned, I'm a landscape designer and I teach landscape, so we have some of that tendency at our office, and we kind of are interested in this history of there's a whole history intertwined with the landscape that is about drawing with and drawing onto it, and we kind of have our own take of landscape drawings, and that is somewhere between botanical, like historic botanical drawings, and Carl Blasfeld's photographs, and to some extent Ellsworth Kelly's meticulous drawings. We kind of fall somewhere between that, and we practice and teach the same thing, and we draw everything, every single leaf, to capture the tactile qualities of the landscape from a riparian zone. It's fine. Or like a coral reef underneath a yeah.
I think there's something amazing about the quality of these drawings that every time I see.
So then we have that wall, which usually this window is closed, but with a library underneath, which actually lines the whole wall of the office all the way to the back. We have these simple furniture made throughout the office that you will see. And the wall, I think we should start with the 4 windows. These are concrete models. Bobby Bertolucci and Graham Ogland were behind making these. Most of the concrete models in our office, they're like cast masters at this moment. They have a method of casting these, which is amazing, and they go at it and create these phenomenal objects. This is more in Nima's wheelhouse, I would say. There was the idea of these 4 windows, and it was called 4 windows, and it's about the opening of the window, its relationship to the thickness of the wall, and how the registration of the mechanism to which the window opens, which I think we should do those mechanisms, as talking about something that not exists. Yes. So this one, for example, was I think it was a retractable diamond grill that kind of opened up to the side, and that created the form of the window. This one, which I quite like, was actually a slide mechanism, and that slide in, and the reason I like it is because of the registration of the form of the sliding mechanism on the shape of the window. And they were all actually inspired by that Brunelleschi window from Santo Spiritus, and the kind of odd relationship that the window has both in elevation and in plan to the wall. Then over here.
Oh, also some beautiful drawing. Thank you. Right.
And then, so over here, this is, I'm not going to talk about this one. This is Venice, but I think we have better models. I mean, I love this model, but we have other ones at the other space. This is the ruins of a facade we did for a project in Dundas West. It's a deep mixed use building, and this was kind of a facade that it was a bas relief of these arcs, and it mimicked the facade that was once there. It never got built, but then still this is ongoing, and we love this project because we love the relationship of the entrance to the commercial and the sidewalk. It's not in fact the continuation of the sidewalk, it's sunken below. That's the view from the inside the pit up towards the sidewalk and the life above. This one is actually a one-to-one mock-up of the competition we entered for the Stanley Cup Memorial Monument, and the idea was that we kind of inscribe the name of the winners on the inside of the monument, and the play of light, and then the names of the future winners will be added onto it, much like the cup itself. I think that concludes this room, and we can go to the other room, which is that's Nima's space, and then over here we have. So that's the 4th one of the 4 windows. I think this one was a tilt and turn mechanism, and that was the register for where the hinge would go. There was something about water collection within the design, which I never got, but you guys were.
It was, I think the top part was tilting back, the bottom part was swiveling, and there was some kind of, oh, sorry, I missed it, I can't both narrate, but there was a scupper on the corner that rained. So there was a thing there. Yes, but we should build it, so we can claim it.
We should finish this.
Yes.
And then again, yet another concrete model. This one was the Corbel, which was another Canadian architect entry, which didn't win, but but it was on a corner lot in our neighborhood, and the idea of, the corner lots in our neighborhood, they have in most neighborhoods, the backyard is really exposed to the street, so there's always this series of multi-generations of additions to the back of these houses. We kind of took that idea and created a multi-unit house on that lot, and the usual access from the side to the main street was, for each unit, was negotiated through corbelling the mass of the building. And then each one of these ones are, each one of these are one unit. Again, this was done by Bobby and Graham. And obviously this part, the fin, is not occupiable. It's, in fact, it does two things. It's both like a light well that brings light to the basement, and it also, when these are together, it kind of creates a wall that frames the backyards of the buildings on that block. Then this one was a landscape competition in Lima, Peru. And it was an archaeological site. It was an arid climate, and the whole, we made a huge effort to capture the tactile quality of the site, to get that the texture of this really dry site, and then the idea was this landscape buffer that kind of it encapsulates this archaeological site within, and then how to bring water to this landscape. And we kind of tapped into the history, and then there was a whole history of the indigenous history of the site, and the use of pukios, or qanats in Farsi. It's qanats in the Peruvian languages, pukios, which are the system of irrigation with the wells. And then we put these towers on top, which would act as a cooling towers, because there's a whole air movement within the pukios, and that's how we brought water into it. Of course, nothing came out of this, but we made a lot of tests with concrete in multiple pours to get this quality. That I think we're going to talk about later, but that's the Canadian Pavilion as it stands today.
And the author is sitting right behind Behnaz. With
That's Kyle. So then we get to the octagon. The octagon, as Elsa mentioned, is one of our award-winning ones. It won the Canadian Award in 2018. It was we took some cues from the buildings in the neighborhood. There's this repeated typology of these octagonal towers that are attached to the corner lot Victorian houses in our neighborhood. We took that same tower and we put it all the way in the back of a Victorian house. This is, by the way, right behind Drake. And then we connected that to the front street through this really thickened tail-like wall, and we suggested that there should be a cafe in it right along that laneway. I think, yeah, that's the gist of the project. And again, this is cast in concrete. It's very heavy, so it's been here since 2018, hasn't moved, and it's Bobby and Graham as written all over it. And then of course, these are some test models. This was, I think, the very first one we did. And these were some studies that we did for the circulation and some exploration of the structure of the building. This, by the looks of it, you can tell it's been through a lot. It's basically the very first project that we did. It's not even in our neighborhood. It was called the offset house, and it was basically 2 boxes offsetted, which that offset would create this potential for a third box to be embedded within it, and that third box would have been the bedroom. It's very different from what we do now, but there you have it. We've been carrying it since our very first office, so it's part of our history. And this is again Corbel. This is that same the fin that I was talking about, that light well, and the way it brings light all the way down to the basement and the space of the basement.
Very artistic shot.
Yeah, so this, I think, again, Graham and Bobby and maybe Kyle was on it.
Yes.
Kyle, were you on this one? And Kyle was on this one.
Kyle is on everything.
Kyle is basically on everything.
But if you want, he's better than you.
So yeah, so then this one was actually the office before this one. It was a store, and that's Larry, by the way. He's not our cat, but he hangs out at our office all the time.
And it matches our
color, like office colors. So this was a storefront on Queen Street. And it was the idea of it had a very small setback, and the two existing buildings had a gap, and we grabbed that. We took that setback and plugged in a facade, and we took that gap in between and created a semi-public promenade. We called it a breezeway gallery, which later on was to become the access to the three small stacked houses behind it. This was 111, which also won the Canadian Architects Award in 2015. And that's the three stacked buildings at the very back, which they kind of linger between being and not being very visible from the streets. And I like this project. Actually, we all like this project because it kind of shows that boundary between public and private, that dance between public and private doesn't have to be a big move. It can be as small as a series of pivot windows that kind of forces a facade in and allows a passerby to kind of engage with the architecture. And that's why we quite like this project. That one, there's nothing, it's just a plan of a project that never happened in LA, but we love that plan so much. It's gonna happen someday. We recycle projects a lot. And then, so finally, not finally, but this is Venice. Boring likeness, we called it, or likeness. We submitted it twice. Once in 2017, once in 2019. Both times we were finalists, but we never win. Third time's the charm. We're gonna submit it next year, the year after. But the idea was basically that it was boring and light wood frame construction. So we kind of took our learnings from years of building with light wood frame construction, and this light wood frame as a construction method that has really deep ties in history of politics, of ecology, social architecture, and has never been expressed. So we kind of brought it to the forefront, this light method of construction, and we kind of expressed the lightness through the act of boring. And I'm going to tell you how. So we invited 13 architects, one from each province and territory, and we asked each one of them to bore a project that is not theirs. And they had to, the bore in this instant means going from the top of the building all the way to the ground and capture a part of the ground itself. It was very, very curated in that sense. And then The base we did a lot of tests, as you can see, some not very successful. And finally, the one we took to Canada Council was actually quite successful, because what we did was we literally blew on the top of the bore and it started to swivel. And that's for the rest of the event, that was what the jury was doing. They were just blowing on the structure. And it kind of showed how light white with frame construction is. And then
I think it's a good time to show a moment of Larry.
Larry resting.
Yes.
And then but basically the experience of the exhibition would have been, and I mean, to say how, to understand how timely this is, I was just checking the US pavilion, and it's about light wood frame construction this year. So it's getting built. It's actually almost there, and it's about light wood frame construction. And the experience would have been to walk through these swaying, a series of swaying boards inside the pavilion, which, like, the models are not here, they're at the Cooper Union, but so there would be a series of these boards, and it would be surrounded by these line drawings that captures all of that history that we talked about. I would say the true, and these boards would be fragments of cut ornaments, structural walls, functional concrete bases. And the true expression was the gentle movement of these objects, subtly registering a sense of time and space. And of course, designing with like objects that you can move around is much easier. You can improvise on the site. Then we come to so this wall, which is mostly the international competitions and some local, actually. This one was the Guggenheim Helsinki competition, which was the largest, as you probably might know. It was one of the largest international competition with 1,700 entries. And as Elsa also mentioned, we were one of the 15 honorable mentions. The project was about using CLT to create and occupy a dome that housed a museum. And there was no distinct exhibition. You were immersed inside the art and walked amongst it. It was done by Thomas at our office, and he went to town with it. Like, he studied the history of Finland and knew all the artists and literally curated the space. And
it looks better as a space than as an object.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm figuring it out.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The top one is Bauhaus Museum in Dessau, which, yes, it was a two-stage competition, and we got the fourth place in it. This was curated by Sir Kyle over here. He became a Bauhaus scholar, so he knew everything about these objects that he
I think
put
that's
on.
why they failed us. I think Kyle pushed the art curation a bit too far, to the point of being a bit offensive to the Bauhaus scholars. But every object here was very deliberate. And this is only one method of curating this giant space that was suggested on the big model. And then we have smaller models with other modes of thinking about how you can occupy big space and show the whole body of work that relates to such an important school.
Yeah, and the whole project was about 2 6-story structures that created one big exhibition space on top.
6 2-stories.
6, what did I say?
So 2 6-stories.
Oh, 6 2-stories.
Yeah.
And the geometric conceit was the slight shift between the reciprocal beam of the roof and the corners of the polygonal plan of the building that created this curious condition where you could have a clear story window that on top it belongs to one, over here you can see it belongs to one room, and on the bottom to the other room. And that's actually the roof of the house. Again, all the credit of this goes to Kyle,
the Bauhaus scholars.
our Bauhaus scholar. And interestingly enough, and I said we recycle projects. This project, which was built, but it's not like this. It's a house on a ravine where the client from the day one said, "I hate modern buildings." So he came obviously to the wrong architect. I mean, but then we designed many iterations. This was one of them. The one that was built was none of these, but we loved this one. And when we were designing Bauhaus, and we were doing something else, and we grabbed the model of this house and just put it on the site, and it was just perfect. And if you look at this and look at that, they're very similar. So basically, we just tweaked it a little bit to fit the requirements of the competition. So then we have that one is the site for Stanley Cup Memorial Monument, which was supposed to be the, I think, 150th year anniversary of Canada, and it was in Ottawa. I think we have no luck with Canada. This is the mock-up. It's 1 to 10 of the building, and it's about the reciprocity between a recognizable figure and its relationship and its shadow, and how that can turn an arc de triomphe into a sundial, if you will. And the way it worked, and I can show you later on, is that we did a lot of tests to make sure that the sun, when it casts through this, the shadow of the monument would hit these lines on the ground, and each one of these lines would mark, it marked a significant date in hockey history. So it became these moments that people would gather to celebrate that significant moment in the hockey history. We were one of the 8 finalists on this one, but we didn't get it. This one is Forno Cultura on Queen Street West. I don't know if you're familiar. If you're familiar with Queen Street West, you probably, their first bakery was on King. This is the Queen Street West location. It was in an old garage in the back of a parking lot.
Sorry, this is not their second one. I think this is the fourth one. Actually, Williamson designed another one.
You're right. Yes. You're right. This is the fourth one.
Yes.
Correction. And then so it was on the back of the parking lot, and the idea was that we kind of put these barrel walls inside the existing garage doors to create this image of an Italian bakery visible from the sidewalk that was very far from it, and on a very North American lot, which is like a parking lot and a small building in the back. So we kind of wanted to beacon the change that was about to happen with those windows. And then of course we've done all the interior design of that as well. Then we have, of course, this one, which is Jaws Sawhorse, which was about this idea of how you can take one rectangular sheet of plywood and turn it into a sawhorse. And we're very proud of this part of the design, which is how this sawhorse locks in place, and it's very sturdy. We use it actually as the legs for the table when we put outside, because we eat lunch on the plaza, what we call the plaza, every summer. And most of these are still at the Cooper Union, which we have to get them back at some point.
Yes.
This is another version of that same facade that I talked about, and what's left of it. And this was a curation of another floor curation of the Guggenheim Helsinki. And of course, this is our office washroom and the economy of space. I would say maybe, and of course, the most recent project of ours is Wardell, which won the Canadian Architects Award this year.
It's very tactile.
We love this project. Kaveh Tahirzadeh actually kind of laid these bricks one at a time. We called him Master Mason, because he just laid every single one of these bricks, and it took him a long time, but it paid off.
Kyle made the model and then gave it to him to lay all the.
Yeah. and the site was on an odd side.
Doing something.
It had an odd relationship. It had an angle that was very odd, and the building somehow becomes tangent and then kind of bypasses the addition, kind of bypasses the main building it serves, and that creates in elevation a condition that is with a vertical line or shadow, and also it kind of houses this underpass that accesses the front street to the backyard. Did you take a shot from the inside? It's very beautiful.
Not very successfully, because the tripod is not allowing me, but
from here it looks better.
That actually, without that, it's better, I think, because the light itself doesn't need any. So I'm going to rotate the camera. Yes, I got it.
Yeah, so that's Wardell, and then we have also, of course, our roll of permits, which is like getting.
It's been very slow in processing in the city, so.
Yeah. And then this is where all the iterations of our different projects end up. For example, this is Venice, a boring lightness, and these were supposed to be these giveaways or these I don't know, souvenirs that we would have given out at the Venice. These were all studies of that base to make it work. And I love this one because it's very practical. Avi Odenheimer made this, and it was actually, he made those two as well. And this was about us being able to put weight in these to see which one makes it more stable. Then these are some of the Stanley Cup iterations that we did. I think this one you can see,
yes,
that shadow at play of the that changes and hits the lines that we talked about. And you know, the Stanley Cup itself also grew in size through history. These were all iterations for 111, which we now know. I mean, was it 111? It was 111, yeah.
Yeah.
And then those were from a project, an exhibition, Gateway to China. Sometimes our clients also make models and send them to us. This is a storefront project, a gallery on Dundas West that we just finished, and the client loved it so much and he's a gamer, so he has a 3D printer and he just printed these 3 facades and sent it to us. That was a
That's a house in Moore Park. Right?
Moore Park, yeah,
Yes.
that was a house in Moore Park. Those are all iterations of the curations that Sir Kyle did for Bauhaus.
It was a two-stage competition, so this level of work only made sense when we were shortlisted among 40 finalists. So we knew we have to go hard at it. So all of these models were prepared for the second stage, but it was a lot of work.
And then we have Nima's wall. You're seeing that it looks like a serial killer's wall. I honestly, I don't get it, but there is a system there that he knows about. So then that's 111, and this is Conus, the concert hall, where we kind of put two concert halls inside a conic concert halls inside a perfect pentagon, and then those two conic shapes were kind of registered on the roof through these ridges, and that created a processional space inside. I don't remember how.
Show the fluting.
Oh, and then you see the fluting on the facade, which is just, we love it.
With the Corbusier in the back.
So that was Conus. And then what else? We have, and then of course those are all studies of this stool that we made, which is all over our office. There's one in every corner. Then we can take you to the shop. So
can I ask?
You're here all the time.
If you can hear me, I can ask a question while you're walking to the shop.
Yeah, I can hear. I think Betsy has a question. I don't know if you.
I can't hear.
If you can hear me, someone from the audience wants to know how you approach architecture competitions. Given that you've shown so many iterative ideas, do you take ideas that you've developed before and apply them, or do you try to approach each competition with fresh eyes?
You wanna?
It's both. Depends on the competition. Sometimes fresh eyes. Sometimes the old projects. Actually, we design always with the fresh eyes, but for some odd reason, some of the old ideas sometimes work on a completely irrelevant site in a better way. So there's not a rule, but we just know and we start from multiple people working on the competition, and we test. And at some point, we don't do so many internal office competitions. We think those are not a bit not productive, but we do a kind of going out and coming up with a range of ideas and including some of the old projects that work better on those sites. So it's a yes.
Yeah, thank you. Because I couldn't really hear.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, should we go?
Are there any more questions, or should we move to the
There
shop?
are. So why don't you go to the studio and then come back?
Should we go to the studio?
Show the shop?
Yeah, okay, we'll do that.
You can show the shop or just come right back in, because it is.
Oh, so maybe we should go to the shop because the shop is quick, no? Because
Yeah,
Betsy is saying
shop
maybe we should
quickly.
go to the
Okay,
shop.
let's do the shop.
Yeah, do
We're
the
gonna
shop quickly.
really quick and come back.
Yeah, then we can see the outside as well.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can't hear you, you probably can't hear me as well. But so this is well, this is our side yard and our railings. This is our favorite railing. We impose it on every client for their railings because we love the proportion. And then as I mentioned, this is like very connected, right? You can see through and through all the spaces, and then that
And
window
Watson.
again is Sir Kyle. And then this is our very modest shop, where we have like tools tucked in everywhere because we don't have enough space. And of course, every shop, yes.
Some dusty digital
Yeah.
dashboards.
And every shop, of course, needs this ice bucket and charcoal grill. Yeah, and it's pretty open to everyone who's ever worked here. So they kind of store their stuff here. They come back and they do their own projects here.
They do their thesis here.
They do their
But there is something nice about working here and still being visually connected to the rest of the studio through these kind of same size windows that create a kind of enfilade in a very practical way.
Yeah.
Should we go?
Yes.
Some material.
And then I think we're gonna.
There you go.
I hope you don't get nauseous. And have,
Oh, and by the way, the Venice Biennale, you should be close because they can't hear you.
okay, sorry.
The Venice Biennale actually kind of inspired us to do this one, the base. This is our grill, which actually does what Venice does. Don't try this at home. But this is our fire pit. So we do barbecues, and we kind of it's a test. People in the neighborhood are really curious about it, and also afraid of it because there's fire in it and it swivels. And this is Jaw Plaza, of course.
And Larry is.
Okay, so we can put it here maybe, and then they can ask questions.
Do you want to stand there so we see if
You
you're?
both can-
Yeah, I'll be there. I just want to see if
can
the
if
frame
you
is
can
booked.
hear it also.
Okay.
So I think I'll just jump in.
Sure.
That was amazing. And I'm so thrilled that we got to see this all in such great detail with really, with you guys really explaining everything. So that was really wonderful.
Sorry, maybe it's sorry, Betsy. It's a bit with the noise outside. Maybe it's better if we go and sit inside so we can properly hear. I think yes. So let's actually, because it's hard to.
It was really hard to hear. Can you disconnect the audio? Okay. And the video.
Okay, so there's quite a few questions. I'm going to start with one of my own. So first of all, I appreciate seeing all the work that doesn't make it into built projects and how all that work morphs and finds its way into other work. That's very much how we work. You never stop innovating and translating that into a built project. Sometimes it takes a really long time. At the beginning of your talk, you set up a really loose dichotomy between modes of practice. It could be have called small office, big office, for lack of a better term. And you talked about the things, the stuff, the models and drawings. My two main questions are another big division in between these kind of modes of practice is time and how you spend your time and how much time you have. And the other one is construction. So I'm going to go slightly technical for the first question. On the 4 window models projects, this question could really go to any of your stereotomic projects. I just want to talk about the process. So do you start the modeling it digitally, then develop into a small maquette? Then when you go back to doing this for a building project like Size As, do you flip back into a computational program like Inventor, where you can quantify lengths of materials and actually describe it the same type of digital process, but materially Size As? Or do you learn from the model building process and then describe the 3D translation into the Size As construction site via tools that you learn during model building? So there's lots of different ways that you can move from digital to maquette to Size As in a project. I just want to hear a little bit about how you approach that.
It's a very interesting question. As you were asking it, I was thinking, I think there is also one aspect of learning that is also from the things that happens on the site and the actual craftsmanship that is happening. And sometimes things are much easier done by a craft person on the site, and some of the complexities that we have in the digital world it becomes extremely mundane when somebody is working with the material. So there's also that aspect. And you're right that our models, we like models that perform. So at some point, they're not just a simulation or a small version of something. And this idea, so for example, boring lightness, we like getting to like notions like equilibrium or testing the statics of something that actually performs, and it's safe, but it moves. And then in this case, it gets to mechanisms, because we were thinking about, and there's a moment that like a detail and geometry, so a window detail and some of the geometric and formal moves are one. So like a casement window operates as almost like a revolution that we have in Rhino. So it registers itself. Every regular door has that, and it goes to the hardware that also accommodates that. We have never gone backward at that level that you mentioned to kind of do a test of a digital software to test the mechanism, partly because we don't know softwares that actually deal with the physics of things at that point, and we trust the real world moment.
And then at what point in the design process do these models come into play in a built project? Is it early, is it the kernel of the design, or is it as you develop the project and you find a detail that you want to express?
I think at some point, some of the concepts are always at play in the back. It's the concept kind of like, it seems like we have certain tendencies that it keeps coming back. So it's not that we say, oh well, that window, or that it's more about the what we like about geometry, what are our conceptual tendencies, and that it just keeps coming back. And I think we think that we're doing something else, but it turns out to be similar to something that we've already done, and then we say, okay, we've done this, let's take that and put it over here. So I think that's more true as to how it works.
Elsa, do you want to jump in, or should I just go through the questions here? Okay, so then these are questions from the audience, and I can probably link a couple of them together. Have you ever developed any of your own projects? So kind of had the idea and done a built project, kind of acted as a developer. I'm going to link this question with another one, which is, what is the balance between commissioned and client work versus speculative competition work? So you have commissioned work, you've got speculative work, you have potentially self-developed work. Like where in your practice do all of these fall?
To ask the first one, yes, we've done that. The very first project that we showed, the Ofsted House, is a project that we invested in, and we
sold our apartment.
Yeah, we sold our house, and we knew that we need to have a built project to establish an office here. So we sold our house and invested it in the Ofsted House. And
it was always the balance of how much you go, like how much architecture and how much thinking about how market responds to things, and to us that became the most conservative aspect of imagining how market, or what people like. There is that aspect of what is too unfamiliar for the context and what is familiar, and all of those things. And at some point we did that just to prove, because when you start, you have to prove that you can build. And at some point, this blending that is happening between conceptual projects, real projects, and academic projects, they're all part of one thing. It's a luxury that comes after you build a few things that you feel confident that you can build. and we did it through that, to actually build, and I think we broke even. We thought we were going to be this genius developer that does boutique things that everybody appreciates, double height, all of these. No, actually, some people clearly prefer a 4th bedroom to a 3rd bedroom and a double height, like those things. And at some point,
most of our effort went in. We thought that people would appreciate geometry, and most of our investment went into the structure.
Yes, that's true.
And underpinning and holding 2 walls, and it was like, and it was a very narrow site, so like just to get in, there was no access. And I think we were in the wrong neighborhood, but still we broke even. And
we broke even, and we decided that.
So that actually ties into another question from the audience. That's a very intense way to start your practice, by the way. that's not for the faint of heart. Like I sold my house and like basically crossed my fingers.
Exactly.
So when you're negotiating a design with a client and a builder, how do you, and you talked about how like the geometry things, oh yeah, we thought everyone would love the piece that we love as well. How do you start negotiating these design pieces to see how can they make it through? Do you have like backup plans in your head, or do you just say, look, this is what we're going to do, and then you just, direct their attention elsewhere so that you can get the piece done that you want? Like, there's so many different ways that architects can negotiate getting the special pieces in the project. Have you found that there's anything that you guys tend towards?
I think we always look at Gary as a great American architect that is both extremely accessible. He was never too academic, but he always had a kind of a personal agenda, like a disciplinary agenda. And he was always on the ground doing things for his own house, as we know. But also he was never too disconnected from. So we always have him as he was way more radical than us. So we thought, even that house that we mentioned, we thought even the level of working with orthogonal geometry as a way of being in the middle ground. So we never liked that much. So after that, we said, if we broke even, let's go for the full. So we don't try to have one mild version and try to convince them. So this is, then they enter the office, this is the world. They generally come liking some of the things that we do, and gradually by building more things similar to a window, all of that, it becomes a world that they enter into.
Nima is actually very strict on that. Like, we usually start by, have you seen our website? Have you seen our work? Are you sure you want us to work with? Because he doesn't budge. I'm a little bit more flexible. He does not budge on anything. He's like, this is it, or let's go find another architect.
And it's not snobbing. It's just, we understand it's a very fair position, preferring a 4th bedroom over a nice space.
Or a garage.
Did we ever compromise a garage? Yeah, garage. Who wants a garage? Yeah, that should also go.
So
go ahead, sorry.
This plays back into one of my initial questions, which is time. So architecture is a service profession, and all we really have is our time. Like, we're giving people our time. You spend time making models, you spend time developing these innovative ideas that may or may not come into fruition. And that is a very big difference in between, say, an office like yours and one of the kind of the opposite hand office that you talked about at the beginning, that maybe doesn't make the models, that has more efficient billable hours. Talk about that a little bit, like the investment of time in your practice into the artifact, which is something that I think is very close at heart when an office begins. And then maybe as you develop, maybe 10 years from now, we could have this conversation again, and you could say, I can't believe we had all that time to make those models. So kind of how much time does it take to make these models, and maybe talk a bit about your investment in them relative to this big office, small office, dichotomy that you've set up?
I mean, I would say we've been practicing for 10 years now, and we've or a little bit more. I don't know. More actually. Wow, it's more.
It's more?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
So,
okay.
so, and I think we've still managed to keep the model making going because we just love making models. Like we love exploring things, and I think partially that's why we're strict on who comes and who goes and which type of project we take on, because we want to maintain our office the way it is. We want to maintain it as a studio, and it's like when I was working at OMA, the one thing that I really loved about it was almost as if I was in school. Like behind me, I could hear different languages, different type of people working different hours. There was no 9 to 5. If there was a deadline, you were there. You were working on different people's timelines. I remember I was working from 12 at night till 4 a.m. And then we went home because the project I was working on was in Kazakhstan. So it was like, but we didn't even question it because it was like school. We were like, yeah, it's fun. And so we kind of, I think we like to keep that part of our office alive at all costs. And I think even having fewer projects, but keeping that alive, at least to me, that's super important.
There is also some value, I think, in a chaotic financial system that none of us, we are not that good with keeping our hours. That money comes from one project, goes to another one. There is something, so far we managed to stay above water and we see how long we can float. But things go, so there's a good client that has no money, but the project is looking good at that moment. We pass that money to that project that is actually producing, is paying us, but it's looking bad. And it's just so we pass on money from one project to the other. And also because we both teach, that's all, there's also some value. For example, we are lucky to have most of the things that Behnaz was mentioning done by they're not even interns, they're really like people that we owe all of the work to, and most of them they were our students. So we have the privilege of having that period of being their teachers, and at some point when they start, they're already excited to do what. So we don't lose time on educating people and how we operate. That's an opportunity. That's a luxury that we have.
There are two kind of random questions. I'll just ask them together and then you can answer them however. One person is interested in the kind of concrete that you use for your concrete models. Is that the kind of like concrete is it like a model making concrete, or is it like the
No, we don't like rockite. We use Portland cement.
Okay, straight up.
It makes us feel that as if we are almost building this whole thing in a real world.
Yeah.
So the real thing, always go with the real thing.
Yes, exactly.
There's another question about someone who's interested in seeing the final design for the Ravine house. Now, I don't know how easy that would be.
Anything that we don't like, we never photograph. That's also our rule. So that project is actually, they went with our permit, said they didn't allow us to detail the building.
Yeah, so it's
always thinking if we should, yeah, exactly. So
if you look at our website, some of the projects has the rendering that we like, but not the final design because the client did something to it that we didn't like.
And of that blurry boundary between built and unbuilt, we are also getting really interested in us choosing where the project ends. Sometimes we go all the way. Sometimes the construction shots become the best documents that carry the architecture ideas. And sometimes it goes to the end when when we get to a happy moment. And we don't go, so we try to be very deliberate on where we frame the project. So some of the projects on our website are actually built, or we think they are too buildery and they didn't follow the kind of detailing that we have. So we keep it as a drawing. That drawing is the project. So it's how close they get is a matter of the life of a project.
So I'm going to throw it to Fotini to wrap up because we're slightly over time. But my last thing I'm going to say to you is for sure, third time's the charm. That is like, those models, I adore those models, and they have got to see a big audience at some point. So thank you. I so much appreciate your time tonight, and I'm going to send it over Fotini to wrap up.
Thank you so
So,
much.
thanks a lot for the great current presentation of your projects. On behalf of BIT, we would like to thank you for joining and participating in tonight's talk. A special thank you to Benaz and Nima for giving this talk virtually and connecting everyone during this time. We are thrilled to have the opportunity to hear about your work and the physical model collection. And to everyone in attendance, you will receive the Conrad certificate by email for attending tonight's talk. And please remember to sign up for our mailing list on the BIT website to receive notifications for more information on upcoming virtual events this year. And follow us on BIT Instagram account and Twitter. So thanks again and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you all for having us. We
Thank you
enjoyed
so
it.
much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay in
Thank you.
touch. Bye.
Bye.